you are known to everybody over here, but ladies and gentlemen, I'm just so happy to, bring my batchmate and a very, very dear friend, someone I really look up to, Dr. Kalpana Dubey of 1987 batch of IRAS, a PhD, and a teacher, passionate teacher. She's worked in Western Railway, Northern Railway, RDSO. She's worked as a faculty in the academy at Lal Bahadur Shastri, after which very ably began in LSM and now at Nair. And today she's speaking on a subject which is very close to her heart, public-private partnership. So I'm not going to take any more time away from her. Please enjoy the session.
Thank you, Smriti.
Kalpana, please start rapping.
Okay, thank you, Smriti. And very good morning once again. I can see there are about 35 odd participants, which is a very good number, and all SAG officers. But I think this session would be different from the ones you've had since till yesterday, because I went to the presentation of Mr. Vijay Kumar, who spoke extensively about, very deeply, in fact, about IRFC and its relationship with the kind of lending it does for Indian Railways, and the kind of data which you will never otherwise get in the field. So I think that was a very interesting, full of information kind of a presentation. Plus, you also had an exposure to PPP as we understand it in the railways. Now, I'm using this deliberately because there is a huge amount of confusion, and PPP in its classical sense is understood by very few people, because in the railways especially, if I may say so, we are guilty of confusing it with our internal, bringing somehow blending the two formats together and doing our own thing with PPP, which doesn't really help us much. So my presentation, my talk with you today would be divided into two parts. The first part would be the conceptual understanding of PPP. No, I won't focus so much, but focus more on the fact as to how the trajectory has been for infrastructure financing, and where in the railways are we standing today as we are in 2020. And I'm sorely tempted to look at the Vision 2020 document of Mamata Banerjee, which she took out in the year 2009, 2010. There was a huge amount of perspective planning done for the railways. And the older I'm getting, the more I'm getting bogged down with the voluminous reports which are churned out for Indian Railways at frequent intervals. Now, the latest to join is the Vijay Kelkar report on revitalizing PPPs. It's not on Indian Railways, but the PPP structure in general. But there are other reports also. There is this Vivek Devroy report on how you can transform the railways. And the only feeling which I have as a person who has been, who's very fond of Indian Railways, and any criticism of Indian Railways really bothers me, because unless you are sucked into the system, I personally feel you don't even have a right to critique the system, because it's very, very different to an outsider. From an outsider's view, we have laid only 30,000 odd route kilometers of railway track, and we have not done much ever since the Britishers have left us. You pick up any newspaper, and this is how they talk about the railways, and it bothers me. It bothers me because we've done a humongous amount of work, but the only thing is we don't talk much about it. We have relayed all those tracks, which the Britishers left us with, all kinds of a collection of meter gauge, a little bit of broad gauge and narrow gauge, and we relayed the whole track. That means we've actually added about, you would say, another 60,000 route kilometers, or maybe more than that, ever since independence. And that's a perspective which never comes out. So I think against this backdrop, let me begin with my presentation, which is a different way of looking at PPP. I would say it is a public policy practitioner's way of looking at PPP and what it means for the country, and where in the railways do we stand. And I'm going to share screen now. Now, this is a step which bothers me at times, and I hope I'm successful.
Do it every morning. I told you in the past also that you should keep the meeting on over here. What's the point of saying over?
I'm back now. Hello.
Ma'am,
Yeah, unable to see your screen.
What happened actually? I'm not even sure what happened, but everything went off suddenly.
Ma'am, there is a green button over there, ma'am. Share screen. There's a green button over there.
In fact, I was trying to do that, and suddenly I kind of, I just don't know what's going on. Okay. Now share screen.
Ma'am.
Kalpana, the system is afraid of you.
That's what everybody says. And you know, nobody is afraid of me actually. In the final analysis.
No, Kalpana, we're all very scared of you.
Absolutely.
Bhavna, you are
Whoa!
Arupa.
Yes.
I'm sorry, but we shouldn't do like this. Otherwise, the gentleman will start thinking, like, I'm just kind of, please allow me to, you know, what do I do? It's like,
You can see clearly, you can speak now.
no, I want to share the screen, you know, it's like, and I've spent time on it.
It's coming, it's coming.
Is it coming? But now God knows what's happening here. And this really frazzles me, you know, as it, you know, it's like,
Fine, Kalpana, it's coming.
I've called somebody from Nair to help me with this. It will take some time. It's in the meanwhile, let me, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay, so now let me start talking even without the PPT. That can anybody tell me which is the year in which PPP was formally launched in India? It was under the UPA government. Hello?
1982.
We are not answering because we do not know.
Everybody knows, but you know, it was the formal launch of the PPP processes in India was 2004, and we are now into 2020, which means it's been a 16-year long journey, or maybe you can even say 20 years, roughly 2 decades, because a little bit of PPP projects were being awarded even in the late 90s. And I remember the first time I heard of a BOT project was when I was Deputy FA Construction in Western Railway, and this Gandhidham Mehsana, this project was...
Can you please create the ID and the password for this meeting?
My God, what is happening? Am I not...
You have disappeared. You now disappeared. Totally. We can't see you also.
Only the audio is working, is it?
Only audio is working now.
No.
Oh, we can see you.
Oh, how are you seeing us, Smriti?
We can see you, Kalpana. I mean,
I can't see her also.
I have a feeling that there is some kind of black magic which happens when I try to connect. Aslan?
Why is SWR blacked out? I want to know that.
Even I'm blacked out. I can't see anything but a dark screen.
I can hear you, but I can't see you, which is rather unfortunate.
Is it unfortunate that you can hear?
Because he came to do some workshop and costing training with me when I was in Western Railway, and he would not pay attention to what I was trying to teach him in Parel. You still remember, Asla? That to costing bilkul nahi seekh rahe the, and I was so passionate those days about on cost and pro forma on cost and labor and material.
I should seek to remind you, Kalpana, there is a very large audience listening to all this.
But you know, we are only talking business here. We are talking about on costs in the workshop and how they can wreck your pure WMS.
Ma'am, Kalpana, ma'am, can you say yes for your on your screen? I'm just requesting remote control so that I could launch the session for you.
I have called somebody. Yeah, just try and do something to activate my desktop.
Request. I'm just saying request remote control and then.
Yeah, Kareem, you know, it's like very crazy because I have been doing online webinars and it has not happened before.
Anyway, Kalpana, till then you can tell us the story of PPP in India, na? BOT.
Yeah, but that's what I was thinking. And just 1 second. Corinne, will you call somebody from the computer section, please, Gulalo, jaldi se? Because this is really sad, and ask him to hang around till the whole thing stabilizes. Sorry. So 2004, under the UPA government, we launched the PPP movement, and let me tell you with a great amount of pride that the kind of literature and the kind of documentation which the erstwhile Planning Commission has done with reference to PPP theory, practice, and the kind of model concession agreements which have been drawn up is unparalleled in the world. No country in the world has documented the PPP processes, the framework, everything so beautifully like the Indian system. And behind the screen, I always mention this name, Namita Mehrotra, who is an IRAS officer who was till quite recently the ED Resource Mobilization and Board. She was behind a whole lot of drafting which they did in the Planning Commission with Mr. Gajendra Haldia. And there was another civil engineer there. They were on deputation and they were the silent workers behind Mr. Gajendra Haldia, who's responsible for the entire PPP policy, framework, documentation, getting the consultants. This is how the whole thing started, you know, and very often we forget the people who have done such good work. And this is the framework on which now more and more PPP models are coming out in the country. Now that is a historical perspective, historical only, it's only 16 years old, but this is important. And there is a role of railway officers there. Now, can anybody tell me, I'm very fond of asking questions, please forgive me for that because I'm a long-term trainer and I know that you are very senior officers in the railways. But then let me, Vishal, I can, sorry, just a minute, this gentleman has come, he'll try and help me put me back on board. Only audio. So, पूरा मतलब ऑडियो चल रहा है, वीडियो पूरा गायब हो गया, 2 बार ब्लैंक आउट हो चुका है Zoom में. You know, and 2 बार I have logged into the Zoom, but now they can hear me, but they can't see me. कंप्यूटर का प्रॉब्लम है ना? कंप्यूटर का प्रॉब्लम? हाँ. I don't think so. मैं तो इतना काम करती हूँ इसमें. क्या करें? But my audio is working through Zoom. मोबाइल में चला सकते हैं? नहीं, मोबाइल में नहीं चलाओ. इसको वापस कर लो, डरो नहीं. इसको क्या फिर से रीस्टार्ट कर लो? नहीं. रीस्टार्ट कर सकते हैं. लेकिन ये कंप्यूटर ऐसे बंद नहीं होना चाहिए. ये तो पूरा ब्लैकआउट हो गया. पूरा ब्लैकआउट हो गया. कुछ भी नहीं है. Should I do it through the mobile? हाँ हाँ बिल्कुल मैडम. मोबाइल से चला लेंगे. वो सेम रहेगा. पर आप तुम तब तक प्लीज ठीक करो. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You are.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to log in through my phone now.
Yes, ma'am.
We can hear you clearly, ma'am.
Join the video. Meeting host will let you in soon.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, check it.
Okay. But how will I use my PPTs then on this? Please get somebody, you know, it's like. Okay, I don't think I'll have to just keep talking.
Ma'am, can you send me your presentation, ma'am? I will do the shifting of the slides and everything.
Okay, I'll do that. I mean, this is bad actually. How it has turned out. Puri, the first presentation you sent me, Sita, पर दुबे है, दुबे है, DUBE@. STFM. हाँ. Hello. Yeah. So hello. It's. Am I audible?
You are, ma'am. You are.
So I have called somebody from the computer, from the training wing to restore my desktop. Something seems to have gone wrong. And I think I'll have to have a backup. I may have to move to Swayambhu's room. Sir se bol do mujhe apna kamra de de. I'll sit there and take the class. So, can anybody tell me what is the Murphy's law?
Yeah, whatever we think, it will go wrong.
ठीक से बोलो. It's such a powerful law.
It will go wrong, definitely.
If anything can go wrong, it will. So therefore,
Yes.
So what should a Boy Scout do? Boy Scout do? What are we all supposed to do in times of a crisis? We somehow supposed to have backups, and we are somehow supposed to keep our minds together. Is it working now? Aap log in karo. I have called somebody. So now let me kind of begin with the session, because 30 officers waiting, and it's a very bad sign that I don't want to waste your time. But the only saving grace is that you guys are in the comfort of your office, so you can start looking at your papers and all. While my computer is being restored, let me tell you that India, we have reached a very, very high maturity level in terms of doing PPPs in the country. But if you ask me personally, what has been the railway experience so far, I am very liable to say that railways and PPP has not been a very happy association. And let me begin with the story, now that I'm kind of not in front of my desktop, that when they started doing the Delhi International Airport Limited, so the old Indira Gandhi International Airport and the New Delhi railway station was supposed to be converted into a PPP format. And I'm talking about the year 2006. And because I was getting very excited about the PPP as a policy process, my PhD was on public policy. So and it was on disinvestment. So PPP seemed to be a natural corollary to what all I was studying. And it was to my utter dismay that Ministry of Civil Aviation managed to go ahead and managed to create a world-class PPP brownfield infrastructure project, which now we know as Delhi International Airport Limited, which is being operated by the GMR Group of Hyderabad. But the PPP tender for the, what should I say, the railways was bid out at least 3 times. And every time we had to cancel it because of a variety of reasons. We couldn't seem to agree as to how to do it. And therefore, that was the first failure of the PPP experiment in the railways. And now the rest is history, as they say. The rest is history, which is repeating itself, because now if you go to the Department of Economic Affairs website, redevelopment of New Delhi railway station is again back on track, which means again after a gap of 12 to 13 years, we are again trying to bid it out on a PPP format. So this is how the railways, what should I say, experiment with PPP began, and it was a failure. Now, as for the World Bank and the ADB, which I have got lovely slides to show you, but I'm so unhappy that I'm not able to do so. We are #1 in terms of PPP maturity in the globe. And that has not come through so easily to all of us. It has come in fits and starts. And obviously, as all of you know, the NHAI and the road sector have the maximum number of projects in the PPP domain. They are the ones who have done bold, and all kinds of formats they have experimented with, and therefore they are successful. Now I come to the, I must caution my listeners, please don't take it otherwise, but I am a socialist at heart. And when I see these expensive PPP projects taking off with a huge amount of tolling and all kinds of, in fact, in the second session, I'll be giving a case study of Delhi International Airport Limited, which I have been studying for the last so many years. And I have developed a certain, what should I say, opinion about what the PPP manager should do and should not do. So I'm trying to tell you that I will be asking you two questions. Can anybody tell me, and you are very senior, I'm sure you know it by heart. It's only the JG officers who fumble with the answers. First question is, what is the difference between a PPP toll-based project and a PPP annuity-based project? And which do you think is more beneficial for the country? Any answers? Smriti, you have heard my lecture before.
What did you say, Kalpana? One is a toll based and the second one is?
Annuity based.
Annuity based. Hard to say, Kalpana. Would it be a toll based?
Toll based mean you're basically charging the public.
Yes, I know, like we do at Burley at the Sea Link.
At the Sea Link, that's a toll, exactly. So that is a toll route in which a heavy duty, a big ticket infrastructure project is rolled out at a huge cost, and the project pays for itself by using a toll method of collection of revenue. In contrast, annuity system is where the government bears the cost of operation, not only the operation and maintenance of the asset created, and also the fact that the PPP investor who has put his money in, he gets a reasonable rate of return on the investment. So in the annuity method, the public is not forced to cough up money for using the facility created. Now, the annuity method has not been used in great deal by India, which is where I feel it's a big lag. But the world leader in terms of PPP maturity, in terms of tolling, in terms of not following tolling and using the annuity method is a country which ruled over us a few hundred years ago. England. Now I am restored, so to speak. So now I'm switching off. Thank you, my dear iPhone. You managed to.
But ma'am, the idea
Kalpana, wouldn't it be expensive? Sorry.
The risk, who is taking the risk? In one case, the government is assuming the risk, whereas in the toll-based system, the risk is being assumed by the investor. And why should government then start bearing the risk? Ultimately, it'll take the money from the taxpayer and the user should pay. Why should somebody sitting in a village in UP be paying a tax to have me running on a highway to Gurgaon? It should ideally be me who is going to go use that highway.
Just let me ask you one question. Till the year 2000, how many private sector players were there in creating massive amounts of public infrastructure? I'm going to ask you a very delicate question here. What do you understand by a public good? Whose responsibility it is to create, construct, maintain public goods which are to be used by the masses of the country, not just you and me? And why do you think the PPP processes are inherently risky? Now I've asked 3 questions in one go and I would ask Rupa to answer this.
No, I am not going to answer all 3 questions. A public good is something which is meant for the general population at large. And it is like, it's got a lot of positive externalities, as I would say. It's got a whole host of externalities, which cannot very often be quantified and put to one person. What was the second question?
The second question was?
Whose responsibility?
Yeah, whose
responsibility? Now, it is because it's the public good and everyone is going to use, for example, a road. You cannot expect it to come automatically. I would expect the government to have a very big hand in the provision of public goods by its very nature. Because people would tend to generally pay for things which they can exclude and keep people out. So I would expect that the government would have a big role to play in the provision of public goods. What's the third question?
The third question, what was happening till the year 2000 in India? How did the infrastructure grow?
I think everything was government. Earlier, everything was done by the government. I think then it became so expensive for them to manage that I presume that they started to rope in other players to kind of bear the burden of these public goods.
Good. So now that has set the discussion rolling that till the year 2000, if you had asked anybody how much of investment was coming through the private sector route in creation of infrastructure. Now, let me tell you, there is another very big story out there. Mr. Vinayak Chatterjee, in fact, I would recommend all of you to read Mr. Vinayak Chatterjee's op-eds and the articles which he writes for the Business Standard on infrastructure. He is the key authority on infrastructure and PPP. So I would strongly recommend that you read Vinayak Chatterjee, and I've been following him over the last 2 decades or so. Now, First of all, we didn't know what is a generic definition of infrastructure, and which is where government should have a major role to play. So now infrastructure, if I ask you, the top 5 sectors of infrastructure, which is a public good, services to be used by the public at large, which is where the government comes in, and which is what the government was doing till about 50 years after independence, was roads, bridges, telecommunication, urban development, sanitation, power, irrigation, the works. In fact, there is a publicized list of which infrastructure should be called infrastructure. Now, that was a debate which went on between the Reserve Bank of India, between the Finance Ministry, and between other sectors, which everybody was trying to define infrastructure in their own way. So now there is a classified list of the infrastructure sector, which has been opened up by successive governments for FDI, for PPP route, and for external commercial borrowing. So let us be on the same platform there. So now infrastructure has been very formally defined by the government of India, which was not the case. The second thing, which is what I'm saying, that I'm a socialist at heart, there is the tragedy of commons. If you have no infrastructure in the country, who pays the price maximum? Who pays the price for not having infrastructure, for not having water supply, for not having continuous electric connection, for not having good roads, for not having schools? It's the poor. And therefore, it is called the tragedy of the commons. You and I do not constitute the commons. And therefore, if we don't have good enough infrastructure in the country, which the government should in any case provide for the people of this country, because it is a welfare government, then somewhere something is amiss in the policy planning. So I go back to my original question, that the country which has shown the maximum amount of compassion, the maximum amount of thinking for the people, for creation of public goods, has been a country who has also experimented with privatization in a major way, and that is United Kingdom. Now, when I started studying the PPP model, I found out that everything was the UK government was doing in terms of the PPP method in creation of more roads, more bridges, more infra, was through the annuity mode, number one. And number two, they focused less on physical infrastructure, unlike India, and focused more on social infrastructure. Now, see, this is where the divergence comes in. That their thinking, their hearts and minds are connected. And which is why it bothers me when people say, I don't know, I don't, there's so many things go across my mind when I talk about this topic, because I get so passionate about it. I am convinced that the tolling method of creation of infrastructure, where you, for a 100-kilometer stretch of road, you end up shelling out 160 rupees multiplied by the lakhs of vehicles which pass through a tolling highway. You can't imagine the kind of revenue which flows back to the government, and I construe it as a form of a double taxation, because the taxes which you are paying is supposed to contribute to physical infrastructure. On top of that, for an asset which the government wants to create to boost the economy, again you end up paying a toll. And here I would like to also share the story of Delhi-Gurgaon Expressway. The Delhi-Gurgaon Expressway had a number of toll plazas, but let me share with you, because of the public protest, because of the fact that there were bunching of people at the toll plazas, because so many were queuing up to commute between Delhi and Gurgaon, the road users went to the High Court and said, why should we pay toll for an inconvenience? We are not going to pay for an inconvenience. And some of those toll plazas were then physically hoisted out, and now a number of tollways have become freeways, which has been the experience with other developed countries also. So I'm trying to share a perspective that roads, bridges, electricity, telecommunication is a public good, and the public good necessarily needs to be created by the government. How you create that, even if you're using the PPP route, we would be better off if we use the annuity method instead of the tolling method. Now, the latest headline which comes as usual with a scandal or a conspiracy is that suddenly when e-tolling has started in the country, the revenues have jumped up astronomically. Now, can anybody tell me, the moment you do electronic tolling without having a manual intervention, without people collecting the toll physically, what is leading to this sudden jump in tolling revenue?
Now the toll plaza is unable to hide their revenues from the government.
Absolutely.
Everything is trackable.
Yeah, so that is exactly, you are spot on. So the moment you experiment with this model, there are all kinds of hidden dangers, which is what I have been following, which is what I love to say, that Delhi Metro is not a PPP project, but Delhi Metro is the world leader. It is an icon of what good public sector intent can do, but not doing a PPP model and yet being such a mega success. And I think there can be no debate on that issue. Now, I'm just keeping my fingers crossed because I want to share my PPT with you. And please pray that I don't suddenly blank out once again. Good heavens, now my presentation is not. Can somebody please pray for me while I'm doing all this? Because I don't want to be disturbed like this, you know, it breaks the rhythm of. Corinne, give me back my pen drive. It is so sad. Please forgive me for all this. Give me my pen drive. Have you managed to send that to Sitaram Rajesh? And ask Vishal to be available, huh? And get me a glass of water, please. And get me a cup of tea. Ye pani de do, please. Okay, so now I'm going to share my.
Kalpana?
Yeah.
Before you start sharing your PPT,
yeah,
and we've got bated breath, believe me.
No, you know.
I agree with Asla.
Yeah.
So, for instance, what you're talking about, public goods, if public goods are, implemented or defined or identified based on their inherent meaning, it's one thing. But for example, we have the C-Link, which I even use, and I can afford to use it. But how is it a public good? And why should the government have to pay annuity for something like this? Because it does take away from the taxpayer. When you build an infrastructure like that in the city of Mumbai, in Gurgaon, the kind of people who were using that flyover were able to have their way.
Yeah.
But, and they didn't want to pay for it. Incidentally, they were going to Delhi probably to earn their bread, and they didn't want to pay for it, and they had their way. But in any other place, it wouldn't have happened. If it was a toll road somewhere in Andhra or another place, it would have just gone on like this.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's the same thing which I ask myself when I look at the Lavasa project of Hindustan Construction Company, where a lot of hillside area was used for development and people logged in money. So it is the same thing, but I think the answer lies somewhere in between, Smriti. Yeah. Like everybody is questioning, do we really need the bullet train? Now let me ask you, if a small country like Japan, which was devastated post Second World War, can have 74 sets of bullet trains in a small country which is 1/10 the size of India, and start running it from as early as late 1960s, and we can't have just one bullet train in the country?
Of course we can have the bullet train, Kalpana, but I think we had a fairly detailed discussion on this subject yesterday. When a farmer has to grow a crop, he first prepares the ground. So if you're planning to have a bullet train, then you have to have the right attitude for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think also because you have so many competing challenges, I think then you have to decide as to what is the most important thing which the government should fund first.
Absolutely, I agree with that, because it's very subjective the way infrastructure decisions are being made.
Yes, so the point is that people who have the most voice need not be the people who really need it the most also. Like for example, as we're again talking about the Worli Express, it's called Express Link or whatever. Perhaps there were other routes to get to Bombay. I mean, for people from suburban Bombay to get to southern Bombay. But perhaps they were a very powerful vote bank or a very powerful...
Absolutely. They are the most powerful vote bankers.
Yes. So in a sense that perhaps in Maharashtra might have had many other competing challenges of having smaller road highways in certain other places, which perhaps maybe towards villages, etc. But they will probably not get heard because you have this huge list of items which have to get constructed. So then you have to take a call. What is going to be a public good? It's convenient then to describe certain things which are not really public goods as public goods.
So now to come back to the main question as to whether the country needs a bullet train or does not need a bullet train is actually a no-brainer. We need both. We need also the Worli-Bandra Sea Link, and we also need very good roads, well maintained, which have been created for the people of this country by the government of this country. So there is actually, it's not a yes or no or a black and white situation. We need not only the sparkling new infrastructure with the Delhi International Airport or with the Hyderabad International Rajiv Gandhi, we need both. So there is, I think, no debate on that. Now the second question which always everybody asks, where is the money going to come from? And where should that money should ideally be invested? Now here I'm going to spend some time. Can you people share, see my screen?
Not yet, ma'am.
We can't see your screen.
Can I raise an issue now? One small issue.
Yeah.
Ma'am?
Yeah. Surya Lakshmi, carry on. Yeah.
Ma'am, what I just wanted to play devil's advocate on this. Firstly, as you said, government fails in its duty to provide the necessary infrastructure. I mean, government is ridden by crony capitalism, corruption, nepotism, whatnot. I mean, we have all studied for civil services, all these things, and now we are privy to all this happening around us. And then we are so frustrated with the way government functions that once they provide a good quality infrastructure, we are ready to pay for it. Like it's a double whammy for the taxpayer.
I would completely agree with that. And through the medium of this session, I would exhort you all, those people who understand what a big ticket construction project is all about, what is the kind of money which goes into it, what is the kind of oversight mechanisms which the government has created, which is needed to follow up on a contract once awarded. You are very right that we are forced to pay. Now I'm going to ask you an indirect question, but it is very, very relevant. Do you know what, after the GST, how many slabs of, what is the service tax rate in this country? And how many commodities does it cover?
18%.
Gentlemen, will somebody answer this question? What is the service tax? If somebody will tell me what is the mop-up through service tax in this country, I would be delighted because I don't have the latest figures. But can anybody tell me when was service tax first discreetly introduced in the country and how it was suddenly, it manifested itself as one big elephant in the room which nobody wants to talk about? Can anybody give me the figure for that? See, because these taxation, financing, infrastructure project creation, everything is a one big picture. You cannot study one thing without connecting the dots of what is happening in other parts of the economy, which is having an impact also on the physical infrastructure space. Now, gentlemen, can somebody tell me how many commodities are covered under the service tax regime under the new GST? And when did the service tax first get introduced in the country? And what was the rate of service tax at that point of time?
Kalpana, we didn't know we were going to have an examination. We came here for a lecture.
Beta, मैं क्या बताऊँ, you know, in this, I'm sorry to call you beta, and please pardon me because I consider myself very old and ancient because I think बहुत सारी चीजें, हाँ बताओ.
Ma'am, we are from non-finance. Asking questions like this may not, you know, get a good feedback for you. Kindly see that, you know, you can tell us, enlighten us so that, you know, we'll be beneficial out of this lecture, ma'am.
You know, but I will let me also, I'm not so worried about the feedback, V.N.M. Rao. And
not feedback, madam, not feedback.
I mean, I'm not so worried, but I think that mine will be the only session which will give you the big picture. It will probably not focus so much on PPP. Okay, then let me also pay heed to what this gentleman is saying. But I would like to tell you that unless you understand how taxation and finance work in this country, we will not be good finance officers. Please understand, I'm repeating myself again, unless you understand what happens to taxation, what happens to financing, what happens when the government takes money from you and puts it into the Consolidated Fund of India, and how that money is withdrawn by the railways through the budgetary support, and how is, unless you see connect the dots, please understand that you will not make a good finance officer, because it is that intelligence you will use when you vet a railway contract. You see, that's the point which I'm trying to make. अगर वो आप limited understanding से GCC, IRS and GEM के through आप लोग काम करोगे, which is not what SAG officers in the railway should now do. We have to think of the next level, and the next level is going to be very, very different. The next level is the EPC contract. It will no longer be PPP. This is what I want to share with you. PPP now has taken a backside in the country. It in the sense that it is no longer the mode of construction of PPP projects in the country is going to take a backside, because government intervention is coming back in a huge way. In fact, we have gone back 20 years in terms of what's going to happen to the PPP projects in the country. So you see, and I cannot talk in silos. So please understand, please bear with me. And I feel a little disappointed that this thing came up so early when I'm struggling with my own internet issues, but never mind. I welcome your suggestion. So let
Anyway,
me talk.
Kalpana, I just wanted to tell you.
Thanks, madam. Thanks.
Yes,
because I was involved with GST. So at that time, I remember reading a CAG report. And if I remember correctly, service tax would have been introduced sometime in the 90s. Maybe early 90s or maybe mid 90s. But that's how old the service tax is in India. No, you have muted yourself, Kalpana, please.
मेरा ये शेयर करनी है मुझे PPT नहीं शेयर हो रही है. I can't go back. I can only speak. Nobody can see me also. तुम यहीं बैठे रहो. I'm going to wear my mask and PPT शेयर करनी है ना. हाँ, शेयर करो और यहीं बैठे रहो. अब जाओ नहीं. I can't keep apologizing continuously because it's not my fault. All this is happening.
The PPT was also visible in between. So it's not an issue.
Ma'am, I can run the presentation, ma'am. I have your PPT. I can run the presentation if you allow me.
Now you sit here, Vishal. Don't go. तुम यहीं बैठे रहो, please. I will treat you to a vegetable burger at the end of it.
Yeah, there it comes.
Okay. Now you sit here, okay? Because it's going to vanish again, I'm very sure. And please don't think that I'm, what should I say, a zombie as far as internet can, because I can handle it very well, technology, but something is wrong with my desktop. Shall you please be available? And now I got very excited when I read the Global Competitive Index report of 2019, and I'm going to refer to it quite often. This is carried out by the World Economic Forum for 140 countries, and India ranks 70th in terms of overall infrastructure, which is not so bad, but not good either. But what has really warmed my heart is the fact that it is the 28th rank in terms of quality of transport infrastructure, which is a very, very good sign. In fact, the railways, the efficiency of train services in the Global Competitiveness Index of 2019 across 140 countries has ranked India as the 28th spot. In terms of the efficiency of train services, we are even ahead of the roadways. So I would say that it's a very balanced perspective of what's happening in infrastructure space in India. I obviously have to move faster now. I'm going to... Now, everybody knows what a PPP is, but I think you don't understand the nuances of what a PPP, why a PPP project sometimes comes across as a shining example of what the public sector should do with its infra projects. And therefore, I spent some time on this definition, which I used in my last presentation before the JGRID officers. Can anybody tell me which is the seminal thought which comes to you? VNM Rao? You are a chief engineer, isn't it? You're representing the civil engineering.
No, yeah. S&T.
S&T. So can you tell me through this generic definition that what is that one phrase which should stick in every finance officer's mind, every civil engineer's mind, whenever you are spending money on behalf of the government? Which is where the PPP scores very well, not the government spending.
Ma'am, I would like to answer this question.
Yeah.
To my mind, the second line of this, like mutual benefits are sought and where the private sector provides operating services and puts private finance at risk. I think this is the gist of this PPP funda, ma'am.
Absolutely, Anand. I'm very happy that you intervened. Where mutual benefits are sought and where the private sector provides operating services or puts private finance to risk. In fact, even fine-tuning it further, my favorite mantra is which every government finance person should pay attention to, because we don't understand risk management, that the moment you put private finance to risk, efficiencies are guaranteed. The moment you put private finance to risk, efficiencies are guaranteed, and the reverse is also true. So true. The moment you put public money to risk, inefficiencies may be the order of the day. Can anybody debate this? The moment you put private finance to risk, why does it start? Why do you think the commercial operation date of all PPP projects are never exceeded? They are always finished on time. They're always finished within budget, which is not the case with public sector projects. Why do you think that happens? That happens because private finance is at risk. And what happens when we work in the government, when you put public finance to risk? What is your risk? If the new line construction does not give you the desired rate of return at the 7th year of opening of the line, as the finance code tells us, what is your risk? What is the risk of the chief engineer who has designed that contract and who has awarded it?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. And which is where public sector is notorious for spending a lot of money, but not having much to show for it, because there is no risk involved. There is no capital risk. There is no rate of return risk. Although we do wet 14% rate of return, we don't even do productivity tests these days because we think it's old fashioned. ये तो 40 साल पहले बोला गया था, वो कुछ नहीं होता है. But PPP contracts में ऐसा नहीं possible. PPP contracts do not have the luxury of exceeding the estimates. PPP contracts do not have the luxury of drawing more and more money from the government exchequer. The moment you withdraw the money into a PPP project, that project cost gets frozen. And here I'm going to share with you a prison video, which I'm very fond of sharing, because in a 7-minute video, you will understand how the nuances of a big ticket project get amplified, get refined when you use the PPP route, if the route has been used with a huge amount of integrity and good intent. So are you with me? Any questions there so far? Yeah.
I have a
Surya Lakshmi, do you want to come in?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
About the inefficiencies, I fully agree with you. But I just, if you permit me, I would want to nuance it a little bit.
Okay.
Because there is no individual risk to the persons who have executed the contract or or commissioned the asset, whatever. There is no individual risk. But the inefficiency of government again reflects itself in government not being able to get the returns from the asset, and therefore they'll be short on revenues, they'll be short on government will be short on their ability to provide services back to the thing. And as you mentioned, the poorest will be the worst hit because of the individuals in the government are not held responsible for their action or inaction.
Very good, Surya Lakshmi. And that is why another point which I want to make: how have we allowed the luxury of so much of variation to the estimates that you can go up to 50% and not ask questions? How have we allowed it as finance officers and the civil engineers who are listening to this session? Because I get very worried about it. How is it that we presume कि जितने भी हम new line construction कर रहे हैं, जितना भी gauge conversion कर रहे हैं, electrification कर रहे हैं, हमें तो 50% variation is our birthright, because you don't even need finance, and between 25 to 50% you need finance concurrence, which eventually gets vetted, and therefore जो 100 करोड़ की project है वो 150 करोड़ की हो सकती है. ये कहाँ से हम लोगों ने thinking adopt करी है? इस thinking को हम लोग question क्यों नहीं करते हैं? Because in a PPP projects which are maybe in a greenfield area, these kind of luxuries are not permitted. एक बार आपने project cost fees कर ली, आप उसमें कोई variation कर ही नहीं सकते हैं. और हम लोग क्या एकदम उल्टा चलता है? I just don't know, because the project planning which I have seen in RDSO projects, which are very, very high technology, very complex, unki price discovery mechanism is so faulty that my finger shakes when I vet an R&D proposal in the railways. Because nobody seems to know where the cost has come from. Nobody wants to talk about it. और फिर जब पूछो तो कहते हैं कि अरे मैडम आप कॉस्ट के बारे में पूछ ही क्यों रही हैं, ये तो टेक्नोलॉजी की बात करिए आप. That bothers me, because eventually it is money which is coming from our own pockets. It's the taxpayers' money, and we owe a certain loyalty to it. And if that thinking does not change, believe me, gentlemen, if you continue doing, and women, if you continue doing item rate contracts, if you continue showering your blessings on variations to estimates, if you continue showering your blessings on extensions to contracts, there is, there is very little we can do either way. And which is why Mr. Sridharan made a mark for himself once he left the railways. Once he did Konkan Railway, once he did Metro Railway. Now you see where the talent lies in the railways. but we fail to exercise that talent. And that is what something all of us should worry about. And now I'm going to show you, please bear with me. It's only an 8-minute video. I am very fond of this video because it talks about the social infrastructure space which the UK government has done. It talks about the kind of penalties which the contractor should bear if he falters in the delivery of services through the PPP route. And it talks about the fact that no variations are permissible, but efficiency is the need of the hour so that everybody benefits. So it covers the entire gamut of what a PPP project should look like. A PPP project should give you efficiency of scale. A PPP project should give you excellent public service delivery. A PPP project should be within cost, on time, and a PPP project should be such which benefits the public at large. If it leads to crony capitalism, which is the underlying threat of a PPP project, which also happens in government projects, though not to such a large extent, then I cannot swear my allegiance to the PPP model. Now you can understand, ladies and gentlemen, that my presentation is not going to stick to the theoretical part of how should you do a PPP, uske contract mein kitni conditions hoti hain, what is due diligence, what is the external audit, all that you can read from the DEA website, from the Niti Aayog website. But I am going to give you a perspective which will force you to think, because unless you think, you're not going to make one iota of a difference to what you're doing. So I'm sorry if I come across as very strong on these viewpoints, but I have developed these viewpoints after studying the PPP model so extensively in other sectors, and then realizing where the blind spots in the railways are. Then there are any number of blind spots. Okay, so now I'm going to play this small video for you. Let me tell you that PPP is not known as PPP in United Kingdom. It is known as PFI. And Anand will tell me what is the full form of PFI. Please, I'm a trainer in Nair, so please don't deny me the happiness which I get when I ask questions. Anand, unmute yourself.
Yes, ma'am. I think
PFI ka beta, I'm sorry, please, I have to be very formal here. Anand, please tell me what is the full form of PFI?
I think public finance something.
Investment.
So finance to tumhe theek mil gaya. You've got 1/3. VNM Rao, what is a PFI?
Public finance investment.
Wrong. Finance, everybody is getting right. Asla, my favorite person. Asla.
Ma'am, it is public finance initiative.
I'm disappointing you, ma'am.
Okay, Deepak Garewal. Do I have the answer?
Public finance initiative.
Okay, finance initiative. Very good. What was the first word you said?
Private finance initiative.
Very good, girl. Who is this?
Rohita.
Rohita, can I see you, please?
Yes, ma'am.
Good girl. See, now you know why I'm a teacher. Why do you think I find myself at Nair?
Hello, ma'am.
I just love the idea of a classroom. Hi, Rohita. Good to see you. You are in Delhi?
Good to see you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, I'm FANR. I just got promoted from senior DFM.
Oh, what a big girl. I thought you were senior DFM. You look so young.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I'm so happy to meet with my railway fraternity because I'm suffering from a disease which is known as splendid isolation. यहाँ पे कोई दिखता ही नहीं है हमें palace में, Nair में. You know, it's very, very deserted. So now I'm very happy. I'm going to connect with you through this video. It's Private Finance Initiative. Private Finance Initiative is the same thing as PPP in India. Now watch this video carefully because this encapsulates what a good PFI initiative should be all about.
It's important to understand how the state judges if a PFI project is better, that's to say, offers better value for money,
is the audio clear?
Public sector route, since it's on this calculation that the decision to proceed is based.
Not very clear.
Just 1 second. I'm going to increase the audio. I'm going to increase the audio.
The project.
Just 1 second.
Public sector capital asset procurement is made up of the large upfront costs of design and construction, followed by payments of the project's operating expenses. Under PFI, it's important to understand how the state judges if a PFI project is better, that's to say, offers better value for money, than the public sector route, since it's on this calculation that the decision to proceed is based. The relative merits of the alternatives are determined by comparing total costs over the life of the project. The total cost of a conventional public sector capital asset procurement is made up of the large upfront costs of design and construction, followed by payments of the project's operating expenses. Under PFI, the picture changes. There's no need to find the initial capital, as this is raised by the private consortium. Payments are then made for the service the consortium provides. These may be higher than previously, as they include an element of private profit, as well as funding the consortium's finance package. The total cost in today's terms, known as the net present value, is simply the sum of these costs or cash flows discounted back to the present. At Old Course Prison, the net present value of the PFI option is £247 million, £2.5 million less than the public sector route. Given that the public sector has the considerable advantage of cheaper debt, it's perhaps surprising that private finance projects can cost less than conventional procurement. In fact, the private sector typically pay 30% more for their borrowings than the state, and this extra expense is seen as one of the big drawbacks of using private finance for public projects. However, there is an argument that says that the government's real cost of capital is actually much higher.
Now, the reason why that is the case, though, is because when the government borrows, in essence, what is happening is that taxpayers are providing a guarantee to the lenders. Now, that is not the case with the private sector. If a company is unable to service its debt, in general, the debt holders, the lenders, will lose some money. We simply have to look at the case, for example, of Eurotunnel. Now, this guarantee that is provided by taxpayers is very valuable. There is a cost that is imposed on taxpayers when they are called upon to do so. So it is misleading to compare, say, the 10% cost of capital of a private sector firm with the 7% gilt rate. What one needs to add to the 7% gilt rate is the guarantee provided by taxpayers. And once one does so, it is no longer clear that the cost of capital is lower to the government than it is to the private sector.
Misleading though it may be, the government's lower cost of capital is used for making comparisons with the cost of private alternatives. So how does the PFI route manage to come in cheaper, as it appears to do at Old Course Prison? Part of the answer lies with the impact of transferring risks from the public sector to the private. Bearing financial responsibility if things go wrong is a strong incentive to the private sector to make sure that nothing does, made stronger still by the fact that they keep the benefits should things go better than expected. At Old Course, the design and build risk was transferred to Tarmac Construction.
Whereas in a traditional contract, it's possible to go back and look for extras, look for changes, and find more money. In the case of this contract, the ultimate risk of the outturn price was transferred across to us. This meant that we had to manage our approach such that we had to succeed. We had to put extra effort into the upfront planning, upfront engineering, to make sure that we were not tempted to go back and ask for more money, because we knew it wouldn't have cost it anyway. The outcome was such that this building will be completed 6 months earlier than the contracted date, well within our cost budgets, and really a successful project.
PFI says not only will you as the private sector take the risk of construction, which we've just discussed, but equally you will take the risk of operating it. So for example, if there's an earthquake, and 10 years from now, the risk of actually repairing it and any injury and other costs that unfolds as a result of that catastrophic event, you, the private sector, will take. The cost implications and the value for money that I now gain because I have passed off those risks is actually very, very big. And that is one of the new features of PFI.
At Old Course, it's now the consortium's responsibility to maintain the fabric of the prison, as well as ensuring the safety and security of staff and inmates. And they can face stiff financial penalties if they don't. The escape of a dangerous prisoner, for example, will net them a £100,000 fine. The transfer of operating risks affects not just the operator member of the consortium, but the constructor as well.
In a typical building design and construction contract, you build it and then leave. The fact that we had the long-term responsibility for the operating of the concession as well meant that we had to weigh the balance between the design and construction costs and the operation costs. For example, we see around us high technology fencing This was put in at extra cost. The extra investment made in the high technology meant that the operator could reduce his staffing levels.
The operator in this case is a subsidiary of the security company Group 4.
If you look at the costs of putting, say, for example, 2 prison officers to patrol a perimeter fence 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, 25 years, and calculate the cost of that, and then estimate the costs of putting intelligence on the fence, more sophisticated alarm systems that will prevent an escape, the capital costs are much, much less than the long-term running costs of patrolling that perimeter fence.
The efforts consortia put into creating designs and operating systems that reduce risk and costs, such as this electronic key system or the high technology fence, are all about winning the initial bidding competition and ensuring that if they do win, their returns are maximized over the life of the contract.
So this was a brief video of 6 minutes about a prison in the United Kingdom. In fact, when I first came across this video, I was pleasantly surprised that how can a prison, which is a hardcore Sarkari job and a Sarkari task, how can that be put on the PPP format? But the Western countries have experimented with this, and the prison is also under a PPP format, which means that the jail superintendent is no longer a public sector employee and a state government employee. He is very much a private sector person. Now this small video is important because it, number one, it goes to show that social infrastructure is a space with which all governments in the West are experimenting with, which is what is not happening in India. That is the first takeaway you must get from this. And the second thing is just this PPP contract is working through the annuity mode. And why is the annuity mode better? Because that way the government is able to balance its books. It does not need to spend capex on construction of the prison. It spends no money on operation or maintenance of the asset. It is not responsible for the security of the prisoners, but it ensures a steady stream of revenue for the private sector through the annuity arrangement every year. And if there is an incident-free PPP arrangement which works for 3 years out of a life of the contract of 5 years, of 25 years, he gets an incentive also. So that ensures that both the public sector and the private sector derive mutual benefits out of a well-designed PPP contract. Now, the second learning which is coming out of this video is the cost of capital. Now, let me tell you guys that once we have stopped sharing dividend, we do no longer have to pay the dividend, and all our borrowings from the central government at the moment do not attract any dividend whatsoever. Don't you think now we have the luxury of very cheap capital? What is your response to that? Because you no longer have to pay even the 4%, 5% we were paying.
No, yesterday, Kalpana, there was this big discussion in which the ex-FC had spoken, and he told us that, in fact, you don't have the luxury of having unlimited amounts of general budgetary support, and you have to borrow, and it's going to be very expensive borrowing through the IRFC. And once IRFC's this thing comes, IPO comes through, it's going to become even more expensive. So that luxury is perhaps going to be not available to us, you know, of having cheap capital.
Okay.
So it's going to become, you have to borrow in the market.
That point is well taken, because our capex budget for this year is around 1,60,000 crore. Now, if you study the figures about 5 years old, earlier we were getting a GBS of say around 40,000 crores or so, and we would plow in our own extra whatever surplus we were generating. And there was a bit of borrowing from the IRFC, which has been there for more than 2 decades now. But now he is absolutely right that I think he must have shared the calculation with you as to what is the annual average payout to IRFC. I mean, that figure is not easily available to us, but I'm sure he would have shared that out with you. But the very fact that we are not able to pay, we are not supposed to pay dividend to the government of India, we are saving 5,000 crores. यूं ही बैठे हमारी books of account में 5,000 crore की saving आ चुकी है. That is a money which can be utilized very, very judiciously. That's the point which I wanted to make. The third thing which I wanted to tell you is that this video talked a lot about transferring risks from the private sector, from the public sector to the private sector. Now, this is one domain area in which there is not enough traction when we work as a government railway finance officer. This point I have made repeatedly, but in a PPP format, the gentleman who designed the Alt Coast prison for a PPP concession period of 25 years took a huge amount of initial study to create that electric fencing around the prison, because he knew that the initial high cost would be more than offset by not having too much manpower patrolling the prison for 24/7 for the remaining 25 years. So the concept of life cycle costing has crept in here, which is what we do not do for our big ticket projects. We do not have that kind of a holistic thinking, that we should plan for the life of the asset which we are creating. So this learning also comes from this experiment, that he brought in better technology. Now I come to my favorite area, that if a construction contractor malperforms, what is the maximum penalty we give him? And that too, half the time we get proposals in finance ki madam isko please waive kar dijiye, liquidated damages. Kitna hum log lete hain unse? 10% of the total project cost, TPC. That is the maximum we can penalize a contractor for non-performance. But in a PFI arrangement or in a PPP arrangement, the penalties are very, very heavy. For instance, in this particular PFI, if a high security prisoner runs away, the private sector partner will have to pay to the government a penalty of £100,000, which is enough to scare the living daylights out of him. Should an event default occur, he is bound to pay up that much. We don't have that discipline in our big ticket public expenditure projects, because the penalties prescribed are so minuscule, and half the time even those are not levied, because they come up with reasons such as site not made available, material was not available, the track was not made available, blocks were not given, therefore liquidated damages are not leviable. So we pay disrespect to the two fundamental principles of project management. One is time and the other is cost. Until we discipline ourselves to handle these two things, we are not going to do much either by way of these item rate contracts or for any other thing for that matter. The last thing is, I want to give you an example here. When the Delhi International Airport was inaugurated just before the Commonwealth Games, which was in 2010, you will find that 90% of the successful PPP projects are always completed on time and within budget. And the reverse is true for all government projects. In fact, as a rough guess, what is our throw forward liability of the Pink Book? Any rough guesses? Any rough guesses as to how much money we have, what should I say, guaranteed to the projects we have sanctioned in the works, machinery and rolling stock program, and projects are languishing, and therefore our throw forward liability is so humongous. It is as bad as the NPAs of the public sector banks. Now you understand why I keep drawing the links. What is the level of non-performing assets in Indian Railways out of its Pink Book? Let me rephrase that question. Okay, so that's something you need to think about it. In a nutshell, if I were to wrap up this video, the learnings are very heavy, that you need to manage your time and costs. And I was trying to share that Delhi International Airport study wala. In the first monsoons, this project was completed 6 months ahead of the time. 2010 October में इसको complete होना था. ये 6 महीने पहले ही तैयार होके खत्म हो गई. The first phase of the Delhi International Airport. Sonia Gandhi inaugurated it. But within the first monsoon next year, 2011 की बात है, the concourse roofing, जो उसकी छत पड़ी थी of the Delhi International Airport, it flew off. वो बारिश की हवा में उड़ गई. Now let me tell you the difference. अगर ये normal contract होता, the contractor would have given some shoddy work to you, gone ahead, because his final bill would have been cleared. Operating and maintenance is not part of his deal. But in a PPP contract, because it's a long-term contract, the GMR group not only had to pay a hefty fine to the Ministry of Civil Aviation because of the malperformance of the asset which it had created, it paid a penalty of, I think, around 20 lakhs because वो छत उड़ गई थी. It repaired that concourse roof in a record time of 30 days. 30 days, otherwise उसको concession agreement में और भी परेशानी होती. So there is a huge amount of disincentive for an asset to misbehave after the construction period is over. That is the beauty of a PPP contract. Now I'm going to go on further. And I'm going to extend this session by another 15 minutes. I hope all of you can bear with me because there was so much of is it okay with all of you if I continue for the next 15 minutes before we take a break? Is it okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Vishal, can you go back to this? Go back to the next slide. Yeah. So now this in a nutshell tells you why PPP is you have more money coming in. You have certainty of outcome, which doesn't happen in a government contract. You have off-balance sheet borrowing. Now PPP contracts in the pink book are shown as EBR, extra budgetary resources. You definitely have better innovation and better technology because the private sector is very good at it. You have a transfer of risk. So the maximum risk in a big ticket project is only on account of two factors: the construction cost, which is the financing risk, and the design cost, which is the designing risk. So you can say out of 100% risk profile of a big ticket project, 50% of the risk gets allocated to the capital, the construction part of it, where the huge amount of project outflows are there, cash outflows are there, and the design risk. And the remaining operation and maintenance risk is a little low. Value for money is something which we should actually put in our GCC. हर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में हमें ये जानना जरूरी होता है कि जो पैसा हम इन्वेस्ट कर रहे हैं, क्या हमें उसका इक्विवेलेंट अमाउंट ऑफ रिटर्न मिल रहा है कि नहीं. And here in the last session also I said that one railway station which I saw as a part of station beautification, PRS building में उन्होंने बड़े-बड़े chandeliers लटका दिए थे. You know, it stupefied me. कि PRS building, which is a professional, no nonsense ticketing kind of an affair for any official public sector building, why do you need to put chandeliers there? You should not. But they do get put because it is presumed as station beautification. So unremunerative expenditure, which we are seeing, definitely you need to put on a better thinking cap and better glasses before you allow such things to happen. Additionality principle, it's one of my favorite principles. There is a World Bank study which said that in the late 1960s, India was ahead of China in terms of roads and bridges and tunnels. That was the infrastructure stock. The civil engineering infrastructure stock in this country in the late 1960s, India was ahead of China. This is a World Bank study. I'm not just quoting from anywhere. But 30 years down the line, China is way, way ahead of us. It has really ramped up its infrastructure. There has been a huge amount of public sector spending and there are no PPPs worth their name in China. वहाँ पे ये सब models नहीं follow होते. एक Reserve Bank के governor ने एक equation दी थी जो मैं हमेशा याद रखती हूँ. The rate of growth of GDP in the country is inversely proportional to the rate of infrastructure growth in India. The faster the GDP rises, the faster the infrastructure growth rate regresses. Goes in the opposite direction because it is an inverse proportion. And I have always remembered this because ab पिछले 4 साल से the gloomy scenario which is emerging is that all private capital is running away. PPP format में बहुत ज़्यादा takers नहीं है. Road sector की BOT projects are all languishing because the private investors are no longer want to get into the risk of leveraged capital. So a lot of things are happening in the last 4 years which I will share with you. तो एडिशनलिटी प्रिंसिपल का मतलब है कि अगर देश को 40 सड़कों की जरूरत है तो 20 सड़कें भारत सरकार बनाएगी और 20 सड़कें पीपीपी माध्यम से आएंगी तो कंट्री को बेटर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर मिल सकेगा. दैट इज द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ एडिशनलिटी प्रिंसिपल एंड आई थिंक दैट इज व्हाई द पीपीपी रूट is a route which we can't avoid taking. We need that kind of private sector expertise. We need that kind of private capital to come in. We need that kind of additional expenditure on infrastructure. So, and
ma'am,
yeah,
Surya Lakshmi again. Sorry for interrupting you. Can I raise a point?
Yeah.
Ma'am, it's all like when you mentioned about China, what came to my mind is the concept of accountability. In China, first of all, it's not a democracy, and anybody found guilty of manipulation or any mischief is simply subjected to the firing squad. Where we can't even penalize the wrongdoer, then what do? And then many of the people, either they are Sarkari Babus are all immune, and then the private parties, because they are big industrialists, they have connections with the people in power, so they are also immune. Even if we go to court, we know how things turn out to be. So where is the question of accountability coming in? I think as an attitudinal issue, as long as we think anything can be managed, the problem lies, I mean, it will take a much longer time for us to, I mean, even at the service delivery stage, people ask for tips. I mean, this is all sort of a vicious cycle which is drawing us into a spiral of...
that sentiment is well expressed and acknowledged also. But I think the days are gone that we were all operating in silos. मैं carbon brushes Western Railway में 130 रुपए की खरीदती थी because there was no exchange of data. I mean, things have moved a long way since then. And that is why these kind of sessions are important, because we are, especially in the railways, we are guilty of what should I say? We are guilty of just looking inwards. We are just like a frog in the well, and I think we've stopped doing that because there's so much of cross ventilation happening as to what's happening in the other domains of the infrastructure economy. There is so much of data sharing which goes on. So the thing which I wanted to tell you, 95 mein hum log carbon brushes we were buying in bulk in Western Railway because they are used in the suburban stock, because and they wear out every 3 months. Usme itni carbon accumulate ho jati hai because of the frequent run of local trains ki wo replace karni padti thi. Would you believe it? The same supplier was giving us carbon brushes with the unit cost was 130, but multiplied by the lakhs we were buying, it was a big ticket A category purchase. Neighboring railway में वो 100 रुपए का दे रहा था, यहाँ पे 130 का दे रहा था. मतलब can you imagine our jitters when we discovered that this guy is fooling us, because there was no mechanism of comparison of rates, there was no mechanism of doing a price discovery, और हम लोग खरीदते जा रहे थे thinking कि last accepted rate तो यही था. आज की तारीख में if you say that you don't know what's, I mean, everything is at your fingertips. All it requires is the intent to not only do the thing properly, but to be accountable for it and to keep monitoring it. I mean, that kind of no-nonsense approach is really the need of the hour. We can't say कि accountability नहीं है, कोई सुनता नहीं है, और मतलब democracy or that is besides the point. Which is why I'm very fond of, I'll be showing you that clip of Delhi Metro. कि जब दिल्ली मेट्रो के CMD का इंटरव्यू हो रहा था and Mr. Sridharan was invited by Sheila Dikshit कि you should choose a managing director for Delhi Metro because it's a high value civil engineering project. जितने भी candidates आए कोई suitable ही नहीं था. So finally Sheila Dikshit turned to the chairman of the interview committee, which happened to be Mr. Sridharan, कि आप ही क्यों नहीं CMD बन जाते? I want you people to digest this fact. Maybe it was a stroke of luck that Delhi Metro by default or by a sudden magical thing which occurred in Sheila Dikshit's mind कि जो interview board के chairman थे वही CMD हो गए Delhi Metro के. Are you people aware of the story? And after that there was no looking back because we got the right person for the right job, and the Delhi Metro success story is for all of us to celebrate. And that is not a PPP. That does not have private money. Yet it has been accountable. Yet it has used even the JICA funding so judiciously. And the motto of Delhi Metro has nothing to do with transport. You know what is the vision statement of Delhi Metro? To give dignity and discipline to the people of Delhi while using public services. To give dignity and to give discipline. That is a part of their vision statement. What does that tell you? Something to think about. So the intent is very important. ऐसे तो मैं आपको कुछ भी PPP का पढ़ा दूं, and that is why you have to carry that feeling with you when you go back to your desks. You have to carry that intent with you. क्योंकि अगर वो intent ही नहीं है तो आप PPP कर लो, आप item rate कर लो, आप EPC कर लो. अगर if you don't have the willingness to understand the nuances of how the contract will operate once it is awarded, यहाँ तो ये कि the moment you award the contract, then what plays out in the field, all of us know. And I'm not being critical here. I'm just being practical when I tell you all this. ये solar panels लगाए थे हम लोगों ने किसी organization में, वो solar panels की site ही change हो गई, bill भी pass हो गया, nobody seemed to know कि हाँ वो site ही छोटी थी, panels कहीं जहाँ लगने थे वहाँ नहीं लगे, वो कहीं और लग गए, और bill भी pass हो गए, क्योंकि accounts वाला भी कभी निकल के नहीं देखता दफ्तर से कि कहाँ पे क्या काम हो रहा है, एक बार चल के देख ही लें जब bill passing की बात आती है. Are you people understanding the sentiment with which I am voicing these concerns? But
yes, madam.
But the PPP contracts, by their very definition, these kind of laxities are not allowed to creep in because these are very serious contracts. If the government also backtracks on its commitment, there is a penalty to be paid to the private sector. If the private sector backtracks, he also pays a penalty. And there is an external audit of whatever you do. There is an external engineer appointed in a PPP contract, an independent engineer whose salary is shared both by the public partner and the private sector partner, who does an independent audit of the PPP project at every stage of construction, at every stage of service delivery. So these are the nuances which have crept. This is how the PPP contracts are very robust documents. Now I'm going to skip through this, but I'm going to stay with one slide. This one. जैसा कि मैंने आपको शुरू में बताया थी कि सन 2000 तक entire investment in the public infrastructure domain was coming from the public sources. The scenario started changing around 2005, 2006, and you will see this green thing, that the private sector participation in investment of money for creation of infrastructure kept on rising, kept on rising, kept on rising. Now, can anybody tell me, there was a time at the end of the 12th five-year plan, it was anticipated that 50% money for creation of public infrastructure would come from the private sources, and the balance 50% will come from the government sources, from the Consolidated Fund of India. Can anybody tell me कि 12 और 19 में क्या फर्क है, अब 20 में क्या फर्क है? 2012 तक में तो you can see that the private sector contribution for infrastructure creation is between 40 and 50%. And 2002-3 में 10%, 15% था. अब 2020 में private sector कहाँ पहुँचा है और public कहाँ है? Can anybody tell me? Have you been reading The Economist or the Economic Times? We are back to the levels of 2005, 2006. We are regressing again in the last 3-4 years, not because of the political change in the government, not because of that. There is a huge amount of intent to bring private money. It is because of the general economic recession. That is one reason. कि वो सब जगह economy slide हो रही है, recession का format चल रहा था. Before the COVID crisis came up, newspapers were full of how the economy is sliding. All newspaper headlines were economy is in a recession. But what is the real reason? मुझे real reason चाहिए कि पैसा क्यों नहीं आ रहा है, पैसा क्यों नहीं है? And what is the share of private sector investment? I want an answer before I wrap up. Then you can all have a tea break. Please, I need an answer. Dilip Mishra, director, which means you might be from a PSU. Dilip, are you from a public sector unit? Dilip Mishra, are you there or you have left? Oh, हम लोग probationers की बहुत random attendance लेते हैं when we do e-learning these days.
Kalpana,
हाँ.
Could it be that, since it had been taking off from 2005-06, it had been growing more and more private sector share, and the results of the partnership began to come, around this time. Mm-hmm. And, because of, the private sector participants not being satisfied, the participation started going down. Could it be that? I mean, do the terms, concession agreements need to be tweaked? Like, there's always a cyclical thing. You do something, then it doesn't work very well, then you withdraw from it, then it's modified, then you go back to it. Could it be that?
Yeah, it could be that. Any other answers, Priti? You're quite close to.
It's also because there has been so much of judicial intervention in policy making, decision making, after the so-called, coal issues, telecom issues, that you really don't know whether your investment will at the last stage not be thwarted.
Yes, I meant to say that.
And along with recession, etc., there is no now policy clarity that executive is.
Yeah, I lost you there. Executive is? Hello, Vijay Singh. No, who was speaking?
Asla.
Asla, I have lost you. Has your audio gone?
No, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah, there was. Yeah.
So the judicial interventions which took place, you see, look at this in the name of sand mining bans, environmental bans. This affected investment in cement sector because you could not get sand at a proper cost. Similarly, stone ballast was not available in the 2010-2011 when I was in Lucknow because the Supreme Court had banned stone movement. Mm-hmm. Now, again, after that, in the name of coal scams and in the name of 2G, etc., the court interventions have resulted in a scenario where people are not sure that even after the executive has cleared their investments, that the courts will not intervene, and land issues are getting held up in courts now. Eventually, 10 villages can go and say that, look, I don't want to give my land, and we get into a situation.
Okay, so there are a variety of reasons. You're very right that land could become an issue, but no PPP project, technically as per the legal terms of the contract, can be seen to have been awarded till the at least 80% of the land is in clear-cut, clearance stage. So that aspect is well understood, and the fact of judicial intervention is well understood.
No, I'm not talking about, you are talking about private investment. We're not talking about PPP alone. We are talking about private investment.
Yeah, private investment, but even in any other kind of project, land clearances, unless they are on paper, unless the government can show, no party, even in an APC contract, would like to come forward. For instance, in the bullet train deal, I think one of the biggest argument was is still hinging on that, कि वो land available हो पाएगा कि नहीं, especially that Bombay area. There is still a 30-hectare area which is still under dispute, which is very critical for the project. तो वो अभी तक मिला नहीं है. So yeah, I guess these things are there. But I would think that the real reason is often the elephant in the room, and which nobody, you see, if you see the stage of private equity investment in the country, with so many, how many billionaires are there in the top 10 list? Isme ki do to Indian hai. In the top 10 richest men in the world, there are 2 Indians featuring there. Yet the irony is that as far as the social indices are concerned, we are just above sub-Saharan Africa. I mean, are you getting the point I'm trying to make? कि private equity का investment India में नहीं होता है. That equity, that profitability flows out to other countries. Why is it that they don't consider India a safe haven for plowing back the profits earned from this country back into the country? Now that is a subject matter of concern. The second thing is the crony capitalism which has happened in the case of the in the case of the non-performing assets which were in the range of the public sector banks, which is about 14 lakh crores. Most of them had diverted the money to other projects, maybe offshore projects, and that is a form of crony capitalism which none of us are able to perhaps deal with. And that you can't blame the courts for that. You can't blame the government policy making for that. In fact, it was only through the RBI intervention sometime 4 years ago that the 50 top A-listers, I will call them, of willful defaulters who borrowed money from the public sector banks and did not even repay, did not even put it into the project for which it was borrowed. So there are all kinds of issues which are coming up, and I'm going to wrap up the session here by asking you to stay with the thought that if people will revert to crony capitalism and even in a PPP format, हम लोग को लगता है कि private sector से पैसा आ रहा है, which is a very important point, which this insight helps me a great deal when I talk about PPP projects. Eventually, जो पैसा PPP projects में इस country में लग भी रहा है, it is not private money. What kind of money is that? It is public sector money, because most of the lending is being done by public finance institutions which have the sovereign backing of the government. Are you clear with this? Strictly speaking, it's not private sector money. What is the owner's equity which gets invested in a PPP project? Any guesses? How leveraged is a PPP project? Only 20% equity. Out of a 100 crore project, 20 crore ही लगाता है अपना private equity. 80% is borrowing, and the borrowing comes from the public sector banks, and the borrowings are not repaid or the interest not paid, so they become non-performing. So eventually, who pays the price for the non-performance of the private sector, even in a PPP arrangement? Please get that thinking clearly in your mind. Are you with me on this?
Yes.
कहाँ से वो पैसा आ रहा है, उस पैसे का उपयोग कैसा हो रहा है, वो पैसा डाइवर्ट कैसे हो रहा है, who picks up the tabs for non-performing assets, who comes in the list of willful, and it's a long process then. So that again brings us back to the whole story that if the intent is good, everything is good. Otherwise, otherwise it's the public sector which suffers the most, even if you follow the PPP route. Now in my next session, I'm going to take you through a walkthrough of the detailed study which I have done for a mega brownfield PPP project, which is the Delhi International Project. And I will be analyzing the PPP experiment through the public practitioner's point of view, things which hurt us most as a public sector employee, not from a theoretical perspective. So I will have a half an hour break. Thank you for listening in to me. And we will reconnect now around 12:05. Is that okay with you, Smriti? Is that okay with you?
It is fine. It's fine.
Okay, Manjeet, have a tea break. See you all at 12:05. Thank you.
Thank you.